Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us again this evening. I'm Erin Zwerko. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the town. We have joining us members of the Town Council, Planning Board, Affordable Housing Committee, and our co-chairs of our Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. So we're quite excited to have the second session of this housing summit, housing workshop, whatever you want to call it. And tonight we're going to start talking about actionable items and strategies and thinking about how to tackle this pretty big task around affordable housing and housing in general. Like I said at the start of the first workshop, I think the conversation can sort of blend between housing in general and affordable housing. Just keep in mind of making sure that you're clear about what you're talking about, and I'm sure Kristina will help figure out, dive a little bit deeper into everyone's comments. So we'll probably be, about the same 2 hours. We did change up the configuration because got some feedback about being able to see everything and hear people, et cetera. So we're going to give this one a shot. Feel free at any point to get up, get some snacks, do whatever you need to do. But I really appreciate everyone's engagement on this and helping us have a good conversation around what the town of Yarmouth can put forward for actions around addressing the housing crisis in our region and locally in our community. So we will be recording tonight. In a couple of days, it will be available on the town's YouTube channel, and I will make sure that it's posted and circulated once we get it. So with that, I will turn it over to Kristina, and we have an introduction and a couple of slides, and then we'll bring the lights back up. That's just to help with the clarity of the presentation. So thank you so much, and Thank you, Kristina.
Thank you, Erin. I am Kristina Egan. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Portland Council of Governments. It was really fun to work with you on the first night, and I'm excited about the night tonight as we're going to get to actions, which David was so crystal clear about last time, that we want to get to a place where we really know what we're doing. We're going to start with just reintroductions. I know there are a few of you that weren't here at the last time. Last time I asked you when you introduced yourself to say why housing was important to you. This time we're going to go a little lighter, and I'm going to ask you, what is the one thing that you cannot live without in the winter? And I'll start it off. So you're going to say your name and what committee you're with, and then what's the one thing you can't live without? The thing that I can't live without is my kitty cat that sleeps on my feet at night because my feet are always really cold. And Jay, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay.
My name is Jay Waterman. I'm on the Housing Committee.
Oh, thank you.
Jay Waterman. I'm on the Housing Committee and also on the Local Development Corp. And I gotta say, snow.
Oh, a real meaner. Let's go over to Dave. We'll go this way. Boom, boom.
Dave Craig, Chair of the Town Council. I was going to say snow also because I love to snowshoe and can't do that without snow.
Karen Ornstein on the Town Council, and I need really good gloves to get through winter.
Yeah. Hear you there.
Eric Landry, Affordable Housing Committee. Just really happy the snow machines are working.
Yeah. Not enough snow until recently.
My name is Chris Slater. I'm on the Housing Committee, and I was going to say snow, but I'm going to say a flashlight so I can walk in the morning.
I'm Lee Kirshner on the Affordable Housing Committee, and I'm going to say sunshine.
Yeah.
I'm Megan Casey. I am on the Town Council and am liaison to the Affordable Housing Committee, former chair of the Affordable Housing, and I will say our wood stove.
Nice. Bring this over to you, Bob.
Bill Richards, co-chair of the Comprehensive Plan Committee, and scarves.
Yeah.
Val Chamberlain, Affordable Housing Committee, new to Yarmouth and new to the Housing Committee, but I'd say two things, electricity and heat, because I know when they're not there. So.
Hi, Ian Cromarty, Planning Board. You kind of stole my thunder. Electricity, constant and steady electricity.
Michelle Cromarty, co-chair Town Council. I can't live without wine and sunny vacations.
I'm Randy Bates. I'm on the Town Council. Probably have to say Netflix.
Hi, I'm Hildy Ginsburg. I'm on the Planning Board and also co-chair of the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, co-chair with Bill. I would say hot drinks, anything hot, cocoa, tea, coffee.
Oh, you didn't say hot toddy.
Oh, I didn't.
Don't ask me, I've never had one. Mary Lynn Engel, and I'm on the planning board, and I would have to say heat. I know it's boring, but that's
essential.
Hi, Wendy Holden, planning board. I want to say like most everything that everybody said, but I'm going to say my wood stove too.
Hi, Jerry King, planning board. I would say snow, but it's really all about the skiing, so I'll say skis.
Skis, yeah.
I already introduced myself, but good boots because I don't have any other ankles to break. And my footwear today is not adequate. I tripped in town hall today.
Oh, sorry to hear it.
Inside.
Oh, great. All right, so let me just see a quick hands. How many of you are town council? Yeah, town council, I know, yeah. Okay, how many of you are planning board again? Yeah, okay, affordable housing committee? And then we have 2 co-chairs of the comp plan. We've got both of you tonight. Okay, great, thank you for helping me remember all that. All right, so I'm gonna review the meeting purpose and just make sure we're all on the same page. We don't have to be. If you want to change it, it's okay. So at the first meeting, we talked about that we wanted this process, meaning the 2 workshops, to have the outcome of a shared action plan so that all of you who are working on various committees have a direction that you're agreed upon in order to create an environment that encourages more housing in the right places for the people who need it and in the way that fits this community. Okay, so you all heard that, the first one. The second thing for this particular workshop is that we are going to try to refine strategies. We did probably only 10 minutes of work of strategies at the last meeting, so we've got very rough strategies. We're going to spend some time kind of digging in and making sure we're really understanding what we're saying when we say something like zoning changes, okay? And then we're going to try to prioritize those actions because not all actions that you want to take to welcome more housing are going to have the same level of impact. So we kind of want to understand what is kind of low-hanging fruit that could happen in the next couple of years or a couple months, and then what are some bigger actions that you want to kind of aim for. And then assign responsibilities. So at the last meeting, we also talked about what the respective roles are of each of your committees, and we want to get more specific about who's going to take the lead on something, make sure that we understand if something's recommended by the Affordable Housing Committee. Is it going to Town Council? Is it going to Planning Board? What's the role of staff in supporting you on those things? So we're going to try to get to that place by the end of this workshop so everybody knows what's on their plate. Yeah? All right, how do people feel about this? You got it? Yeah, thumbs up? Okay, great. So we're going to do a quick recap just to remind those of you who were here last time what we said, and then for those of you who weren't here, just to give you a sense of what Christian and I, and actually Julie, who did an awesome job capturing a lot of these notes with Christian, what we heard from all of you. So when we first started, we did a round robin about why it's important for Yarmouth to welcome more housing. And this is a little word cloud. You can see the things that came up a lot: diversity, inclusion, affordable. In the middle here, many of you said there were different types of people that you thought it was important to have enough housing for. We also heard about kind of a moral responsibility or caring for each other. We heard that diversity equals a healthy town. Some of you talked about the importance of open space, and that if you're building kind of in the downtown areas, the village areas, or in growth areas, that you're able to kind of slow down the consumption of open space. And then some of you talked about how this was important for business and that there were opportunities in including, being welcoming and including more diversity. Is there anything that was really that we missed here in terms of the themes that came out from you as a group? Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next thing. So this is just a quick diagram that Christian and I put together with Aaron's help to try to help us understand how you all interact with each other. So here, the town council, I'll start over here, actually on the right, counterintuitively, but the town council is ultimately responsible for setting your policies, adopting your ordinances, adopting your plans. So the authority really rests mostly here. Although the planning board has some authority to make sure that the adopted ordinances are implemented properly. And the planning board may also choose to provide some advice on policies and recommendations to the town council. You may implement those ordinances, but you might also recommend new ones. And then the vision, so the goals and the policy for the town, are informed by the Affordable Housing Committee. The Affordable Housing Committee, as it was constituted, is advisory to the town council. But my understanding is that sometimes the Affordable Housing Committee will actually make some recommendations to the planning board, and then the planning board will consider them and move it on to the town council. The Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee is also advisory to the town council. The town council will choose to adopt or modify the comp plan when it's done. The planning board may have input into the comp plan, but really the line of advice is straight this way. I'm going to stop here and see if there's any misunderstanding about the way that I've just phrased or clarification.
I think it's good.
Okay. Does anybody else have any clarification about how y'all work together?
No, but I like how big the town council is.
Next time, Randy, I'm going to put your face right here with Dave's. Yeah, we'll put everybody's face. Okay, great. All right, so the next thing that we talked about at the last council. We brainstormed together as a group, what kind of housing does Yarmouth really need? Now, you do have a housing assessment that was done by Jeff Levine. It gives you very detailed information. You also have some work that Camoin Associates did. But we didn't ground you in those facts. We just asked you, what do you think are the things that you need? And I think it was you, Bill, that might have said, we don't need any more $1 million homes on 2-acre lots. Or something like that.
Or 4-acre lots, right?
Or 4-acre lots. And so the summary of what we heard was, you need everything but that really expensive single-family home on a large piece of land. That you need other kinds of housing. And so you wanted starter homes for families, more moderately priced homes, more accessory dwelling units, and of course things that are going to fit for multifamily, people of lower income, seniors, places for your employees at the town and also employees of businesses in town to be able to live. Mixed use, meaning you could have some commercial and retail space mixed with housing in the same kind of building, and also higher density. And this came up in a couple different ways. This was, some said build up, others of you said not too far up. Some of you said dense, not too dense, right? But definitely not enough land in Yarmouth, we heard, allowed for denser multifamily housing. Okay, I'm going to pause here and see if there's any clarifications on what we heard you say. Man, Christian, you're batting 100 for 100 here. Okay. So then we went into what are the barriers in Yarmouth? What are the things that are really preventing Yarmouth from welcoming more housing in the places that make sense for the people who need it in ways that fit your community? And what we heard was zoning is the biggest one. These two on the left were the ones that you prioritized, the top ones. I think 12 of you said zoning was the most important, 11 or 12 of you, and 6 of you said public perception, and the rest got kind of a spattering of votes over here. So on zoning, when you try to define that problem or that barrier, it's pretty consistent with what you said about what you don't have in Yarmouth that you need more of, that you have a lot of large lots, and I keep forgetting what MDR stands for.
Medium density residential.
Thank you. Medium density residential. You said that that was actually a place where a lot of those lots were. They were very large, and historically they actually were smaller, and then they were allowed to be larger. And then also that there's just not enough multifamily allowed, particularly in your growth areas. I'm going to pause here because this is a really big one. Yes, Wendy.
So medium density residential, I think that most of our lots are small, and there's a required larger zoning on it. So if you have a half an acre, it's zoned to be 1 acre. So they're a lot of them are non-conforming. So we don't have large. We may have some large lots in MDR, but
So it's interesting. So you're actually zoned for larger than what the development actually is. The development
Correct.
pattern is. Thank you,
Yes.
Wendy. Okay. 80% out of compliance. Okay. Erin, it sure is, Megan. Erin, did you want to clarify anything?
No, I was just.
Okay, you're the microphone repository. Awesome. All right, then we've got public Did I see another hand? Oh, yes.
I'm thinking of the ADUs, and one of the impediments seems to me is the approval process.
Oh, thank you, Christian.
I'm thinking of the ADUs and the approval process and the difficulty in getting an approval and understanding what the approval process is as an impediment.
Okay, great. And Christian, I'm going to ask you to write that down as a barrier to ADUs, if you would. So the second thing is the public perception and understanding. And many of you identified this as an issue that caused opposition to proposed zoning changes or to proposed actual housing developments. And when you defined, well, what exactly was it? One thing that came up was that the growth area may not be clearly understood by the public, or maybe it's not even clearly defined. I wasn't clear on that. But that's one of the areas here, is where is it that Yarmouth really wants to grow, and can you precisely demarcate that geography? Then we had public opposition to proposals, that people do come out and they don't like what's proposed. That may be because it doesn't look good, or people feel like the density is going to look really bad in town. And then also that there's just kind of like a human nature that we're all kind of fearful of change when we can't visualize what it is, or we don't really understand what it will be. Or maybe we're just like really happy with our community right now, and if something changed, you're worried that your quality of life would change. I'm going to pause there. Any comments about how we're capturing this? Okay. Yes, please.
I wonder if we need a NIMBY on there somewhere.
Well, actually, and total good recollection, because that was in our notes. We tend not to use NIMBY, meaning not in my backyard, or my favorite, build absolutely nothing anywhere ever? No. Bananas. Near anyone, yeah, we're near anyone. Just because it's a little bit pejorative of the people that are maybe opposing the housing. It's kind of a shorthand that a lot of people use, but usually there's real fear or grounded, criticisms or worries about traffic or school kids or whatever it is. And so these things may be addressed by providing data or modeling or visuals. And it may not just be people's knee-jerk reactions. Now, there may be some people that do have knee-jerk reactions out there, and nothing you could say could ever make them happy about a new housing development. But we want to try to keep it positive. But feel free to use that word if you want to.
Well, I was an NIMBY, so...
Okay, all right. You're a self-proclaimed NIMBY. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever met anyone like you.
Well, in my backyard, I was like, wait, that's a buffer between me and the school. How the heck are they building houses there?
Yeah.
So
you felt that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it was your actual backyard.
Yeah.
Your actual
side
backyard.
yard.
All right. So we have a few other things that you identified as barriers. And these were in two ways. One, which was like a barrier for a developer that might do something, build something that was more affordable. And one was actually a barrier for people where they might not be able to get into the market. And so you had several comments around this. The first one was that people who may want to come here might be getting outbid, maybe from people from other states that have moved here since the pandemic, for example. That is one of the things that's been happening in Maine all over, is that as there's more remote work, people from other places that are from higher priced housing markets are moving here. They're taking up limited housing stock, and the prices for everybody goes up. So this is something that's just happening. That people who really need it, there's not enough public subsidy to help them with their rents or their first down payment. There's insufficient incentives to developers to build affordable because developers need to make it pencil out. And sometimes there's not enough public money for it, or oftentimes there isn't. And also, as Yarmouth is looking at trying to get public resources in here for housing, you don't score as well because you don't have as high distressed areas as other parts of the state. Pause here. Yes?
So got a bunch of stuff to say, but
I'm going to give you the mic, Eric.
I have a
Yeah.
pretty big mouth, but all right. So, with regards to folks getting outbid, I think that happens in every socioeconomic category. So it's not just our Yarmouth neighbors. And that being said, though, Yarmouth, through COVID, experienced astronomical equity boost.
Yeah.
And so that in turn also had a baseline effect of even first-time homeowners looking at 500 plus
Yeah.
as the first building that they could purchase. And so now you're getting a boost there. So, but again, that happened across the board throughout all of Southern Maine. So we're not talking about anything that's surprising necessarily. However, what's really interesting is that you have insufficient incentives. I think it's more about insufficient education on those first-time buyers for the incentives, because there's up to $10,000 available to them if they pass through a Maine housing education program, but I just don't think there's enough education given or offered.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to plug my own first-time buyer program that I got in front of the Yarmouth community. I do, but because
Yeah.
I want to be
Yeah.
a source of education. It's agnostic. It's not pitched by any
Yeah.
one company, but
Yeah.
rather just educating them on the resources that are at their fingertips.
Great. So we'll add that into our notes about this meeting, which is that education might actually help some people get in. This particular bullet, Eric, is about developers, which is okay. No, it's okay. You're talking about this, that maybe it's not just subsidies. I mean, you'll hear from some people there aren't enough subsidies, but now what we're hearing is there may not be enough education for people to know what's out there as subsidies. Yep. Good. Anything else to add on this? Okay, and then there are kind of like a random bunch of things I put down here. A few of you mentioned short-term rentals, which, you know, this can be something that you'll see people that will put their properties out and they'll rent it out continuously, and that means it's not there as the permanent unit that could be used by a family. We've looked at this kind of regionally, and it is an issue. It's not the driving issue of the housing shortage, but it's something just to recognize. And and we can get into this in more detail if any of you are interested, but there are ways to kind of regulate it. There are ways to put some fees on it. There are ways you can put the fees into affordable housing. So there are policy remedies that your town can adopt. Some of you talked about sprinkler requirements as they related to ADUs and insufficient water main capacity in order to meet those. I think that might have been the same as infrastructure constraints. And also some of you talked, and one of you talked about the ADUs. It was you, Val, I think, where the ADUs, the approval process was not smooth.
Speed and the complexity of it.
Speed and complexity. So we'll annotate that to make sure that it's that. And it's not just for ADUs. It could be the overall process. We hear this when we're talking to developers all throughout the region. You're not alone. It's unpredictability makes it hard for developers to cost them money, right? So it ups the price of the developments. Okay, so is there anything here that doesn't resonate or that we missed that you think is a major barrier to Yarmouth welcoming more housing? Welcome, Amy. I got a double thumbs up from Bill. I got a hand over here, yes.
Talking about education, I'm wondering,
It's Meredith, right?
Meredith, yeah. Talking about education, do people from outside know that Yarmouth is interested in having more people and more diversity and more development? Or do they think we're just a plain white town that, you know, likes just being a plain white Christian town?
I'm not sure I can give you the answer on that. Different towns have different reputations out there. There are some towns that have pretty clearly said they don't want any more housing, roll up the drawbridge, you know. I don't think Yarmouth is one of those. There are others in our region that have that reputation. From my perspective, you have a reputation of having really great schools and that people really want to live here and that it's hard to get into the housing market. I don't know if other people feel that's fair, those of you who are involved in regional things. There are probably 100 different answers to that, Meredith, but I'll just give you my gut sense. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on because we're going to be solutions-oriented today and just kind of ground you in some of the strategies. And then we're going to go to Erin, who's going to give you a little background information. So as we talk about these more in depth after Erin, you have some facts and process and history in your head. which we didn't do at the last meeting, and I think it would be helpful for this meeting. So I have 3 major categories of strategies. There are also lots of other things that we can put up here during the workshop. But the first one addresses your number 1 barrier, which is zoning. And your solutions, generally, were to reduce the minimum lot size in the MDR.
Medium density. Medium residential.
Okay, I'm just going to turn to Wendy every time I can't remember that acronym. Yep. And then also to allow more multifamily, particularly in places that make sense. So the places that are close to, you've got a public transit line, places that are close to sewer, places that are close to a beautiful library, things like that. And then to somehow start to address the public education, whether you call it a NIMBY or you call it trying to help people visualize how things could look beautiful if you did have more housing. And some of the things that you thought last time were, well, we need to have a few successes, take some pictures of them, let people know, so that they're not quite as afraid of new housing. The staff, and I think Erin and Julie were really called out for this, doing great communications, really clear communications and constant communications with town residents to help them understand what is proposed and what is the policy direction and things like that. And then also, several of you said political courage. I waffled a little bit about whether to put this up here because it's putting you a little bit on the spot. But when you have a lot of residents that are opposed to something, but it's the policy direction you've adopted, or you can see that it has some benefits, to be able to vote in a way that supports that zoning change or that proposal, even though you know you've got a chamber full of people that really don't want you to. I've been a town councilor. I don't put this up here lightly. I've been on the end of a 6-1 vote. I've been in the end of like a vote where a lot of people didn't want the change. It's a very, very, very difficult thing to do. So I don't know if that's a strategy or it's just something you want to think about as you're doing your service. Then you also talked about funding and resources. So you have $400,000, I believe, in an account that hasn't yet been used to support more affordable housing. That could be used for something. You have, some of you suggested maybe lower interest loans for people that might want to buy. And then also, I know in the last couple weeks, there's been more conversation about whether town-owned land might be a resource that could bring down the cost of development and really support affordable housing development. So I put that one up there because I know that there's a proposal that started to circulate from one of your citizen groups out there. There may be other ways, and also to try to kind of lower the costs for developers or lower the costs for people that are trying to get into the housing market. Yes, Megan. Here comes the microphone.
I don't know if these are set or if you want to add or whatever, but
yeah.
Under zoning, I think another thing is a sense of urgency and expedited permitting, expedited review, things coming. We've been waiting at the town council level for 2 or 3 years now for things to come to us, and they're not coming. And it needs to. We need to add a sense throughout the town of urgency about these issues, and that it is not the case that we can just wait another few months. We need to get things going, and I don't know if that's a zoning thing or if that's even a public perception thing. I'm not sure where it falls.
And maybe one of the things, Megan, are you talking about the process between all of you needs to be faster?
Yes.
Okay.
Among the planning board needs to approve things or disapprove them even and send them to us, so we can have them, as well as other things in the community need to be, developers or whatever need to be able to move through the process. I know there's requirements and it's important to do those, but I think that sometimes it is, and whatever, we have to have a sense of urgency that we need to get, as we say at school, a culture of yes for some things. So.
Thank you, Megan. I'm going to take facilitator's prerogative here and put it in a bike rack that we come back to, and a way to kind of inform us. Yeah, sorry, instead of a parking lot. just to be a little bit more active transportation friendly. So in a bike rack. So
we're going to blue sky it.
Yeah, bike rack. So we'll come back to this when we start thinking about roles and responsibilities, and maybe if we're able to, if we have enough time, maybe we'll put some time frames on things. Okay. And Karen, I'm going to come to you, but I just want to set the tone here. Is I wanted to make sure I captured you from last time properly before we go into deep dive on these, because we're going to hear from Erin first, and then we're going to do deep dive. Are you small dive?
Something that I think was missed from last time.
Perfect.
It's not under
sorry,
zoning
Nate.
because it's already an approved, but
Yep.
to encourage the ADUs, because
Yeah.
our committee was very clear that that's something that's we think is really going to help us reach our goal.
Okay, so I'm going to put that under zoning. It may have other implications, Lee. It might be in other places to encourage it, but I'm just going to put it right here, and I'm going to bike rack that too. Karen?
Under funding and resources, one of the things we talked about last time, and it relates to a previous slide as well, is creating subsidies for home buyers, whether it's low interest loans or equity sharing for the down purchase.
Thank you. All right, is there anything else that we missed from last time on this slide? Okay, with that, oh, sorry, Jay.
I think one of the points I made is that underfunding, I think we need to call it out and name it an affordable support fund and affordable housing trust fund, whatever we want to call it. Because if we don't name it, it can just be sort of like
Do you mean
forgotten about.
name the fund, or do you mean name what
Name
you're
the
trying
fund.
to
Name the fund.
Okay.
And then figure out ways to fund it.
And increase funds. Okay, great. We will come back to all of those things and dive a little bit deeper. So that's great. Erin, I'm going to have you come up here, and I'm going to sit down while you present some information.
Hi. So I'm going to tell you a little bit. I had sent some, sorry, Sean. I had sent some information or some links with the agenda packet. It was referenced earlier tonight, but the Jeff Levine Planning Strategies had prepared a housing needs assessment for support of the comprehensive plan. And I won't get into the analysis part of it, but essentially he looked at renter households and homeowner households and identified through accepted data sources like the census and like HUD's data, identified housing units or households that are rent burdened. And what I mean by rent burdened is that household is spending more than 30% of their gross monthly income on their housing costs. So housing costs can include rent and mortgage. For homeowners, interest payments, condo fees, things like that. For renters, utilities, parking space, if you have to rent your parking space, things like that. So housing costs is kind of like a broad term to reference that. So ultimately, and he looked at all income levels. The data gets aggregated significantly after a high household income. So that's a little less, you can parse that out. You can't parse that out as well. But ultimately, for this point in time, there are just under 1,280 households in Yarmouth that are rent burdened. So the Affordable Housing Committee last summer took that report and said, that's interesting. Let's see if we can analyze what that number would be for households that are within our charter, which is 50% AMI to 80% AMI. Yep, Megan.
Clarifying question, is that, you said rent burden, does that include homeowners or is it just people renting?
It's both. Cost burdened. Pardon me if I misspoke.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure because I thought that was, we only have about that many rentals.
Right, right. No, so that's across different types of ownership or tenure. So the Affordable Housing Committee looked at it over the summer, and while you can't do a very precise apples-to-apples comparison because the data sources don't line up perfectly with AMI, essentially we found that within that income band, so the 50% AMI to the 80% AMI, there's about 430 households that are cost burdened. So those are households that are likely struggling, and thinking about that as it relates to affordable housing production goal for the community. It hasn't been proposed to be adopted, but it's pretty solid work. It would end up over a 10-year horizon, which is generally the lifetime of the comprehensive plan, 43 units a year. So I provide that information to help you all think about how to assess or how to think about strategies that might be more production-oriented. 43 units a year is a lot of units. I would say that there was... in 2018, we reached that number, but the homes in McKerney Village 1 and 2 were being built, and that was a pretty big subdivision. Since then, we haven't seen permits in my department that reach that number. So keep that in mind, that it's an aspirational goal, but it's something to always reach for. And also keep in mind that that was developed as in a point in time, so that changes as people's situation changes. I will also provide...
Erin, can I ask you a quick question for everybody? So that goal of 43 people, or 43 units, that has not been adopted by any board as a goal. It's just out of that report?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so I'm going to put that in the bike rack just as something that you might consider as adopting a housing production goal.
Yeah, thank you. So there was some other things to keep in mind relative to the discussion on strategies is that we have obviously our land use ordinances, Chapter 701 and 703, that dictate minimum lot size and those sorts of controls. And this came up sort of at the end of the last workshop, and I just want to make a clear statement about this, is that we have zoning, but in a lot of our neighborhoods in Yarmouth, there's also homeowner associations, and these are private restrictions. And and often those private restrictions, at least in many of the subdivisions that I've looked at over the course of my time here, they are the lots only allow one single family home, and they don't allow the lots to be subdivided further. So there's a level of, we could do a lot of work locally in our zoning, but we also have maybe an education component relative to homeowner associations, if they are even active. A lot of our subdivisions don't necessarily have active associations, to potentially educate and see if that is of interest. Oftentimes, to amend those covenants, it requires a 75% vote of all of the members of the association. So I just bring that up, that it was part of the conversation around LD 2003, but I didn't necessarily explain a lot of it, is that we can change zoning, but there's also environmental constraints and private restrictions that affect any sort of development in the community. So as it relates to moving forward, we do obviously have a comprehensive plan underway, so there is a relationship between the work that's coming out of here and the work that will come out of the comprehensive plan, and making sure that it's consistent. Of course, the comprehensive plan will have an implementation committee that can take on some of these big picture topics that definitely warrant their own planning process that we won't solve tonight. But so keep that in mind, that I think there are some quick wins. I think there's some longer term things that this group can think about. And I think there's ways to collaborate with partners within our community to think a little bit more innovative in terms of how we use primarily town-owned land. So I'm happy to answer any questions right now, to provide any other background information.
Quick question, If somebody who has a single-family home and they divide it up into multifamily, does that count? Does that go to your count or not?
I think when you're talking about the housing production, you're going to want to look for net new housing units. So in the case of where a single family might be divided into like a two-family or a quadplex or something like that, you are creating housing units, net new housing units. So for sure, that's something to think about as well. It definitely how we use our existing housing stock in the community plays into this as well.
I just want to confirm that zoning changes and LD 2003 cannot supersede any sort of private restrictive covenants. Is that correct?
Yes, it's 100% correct, and it doesn't. It doesn't also. Can't think of the word, but you still have to be in compliance with subdivision law, shoreland zoning, and any other sort of zoning requirements that a town or a city might have.
Along those lines, how about ADUs in the the homeowners associations? Do those vary by association?
Yes, I would say much of the language is very clear that it's one single family home, and unless Nick is our code enforcement officer, and Nick and I have not tackled that issue. If there is that case, we often ask the property owner to go to their association and get approval, so that we're not doing something that's inconsistent with something that we don't enforce.
Just a quick, kind of a silly question, because when I was reading through the information that you sent over, and the study that was done with the percentage of 30% of homeowners and renters, those are all existing like homeowners and renters right now. Okay, Aaron's nodding yes, so I don't have to pass it back. So, silly question isn't so it was based on like just the basics of home ownership, mortgage, insurance, all of those things to own the property. Isn't that a choice? And I'm going to just do a kind of a second question, is then how is, so if I moved here because I saw one of the reasons, because schools and wanting to go to the great schools in Yarmouth, having my child go, that's my choice to then have that higher payment. So how is that causing the issues if these are all based on people's choices, I guess?
So 100% it is a choice. Some households do not have a choice. So if they find a housing unit that, or a home, because they all are homes, that fits their needs, they might have to stretch their budget. At a higher income, that pain may not be so significant, but at a lower income, that might be meaning, less groceries or medical bills stack up. So there's trade-offs there, but it is a choice. If any community doesn't have those choices, then in some cases you could see the community become more homogenous. So I think the key point is that Yarmouth has so many great things to offer, is that we should also be cognizant that that some families that may want to live here can't do that because they've made a choice that suits their budget and what they can stretch, and cannot join this community. So I think there's it's a little bit of balancing between who can actually afford to live here, who needs to stretch their budget, maybe have some trade-offs in there.
And then just quickly, you can repeat my question, is what we've learned in the housing meeting that we have is that 80% of the people that live in Yarmouth couldn't rebuy their house. I couldn't rebuy mine right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, it's not based on escalation, it's based on current mortgage, but at this time.
Yeah, so Wendy had mentioned that folks wouldn't necessarily be able to rebuy their home today. And that brings up the point that there's a lot of external factors that we in this room have no control over. The real estate market, extreme weather that creates issues for their property, interest rates. So there's a lot of things that we cannot control. So yeah.
About 3 years ago at Brookside Condominium Association, we were looking at some very big long-term maintenance issues that were going to cost a lot of money. And we looked at the possibility of selling some of the land that we own. It's total is about 65 acres, and we only use about 15 of it. Some of it isn't buildable in any case, but we did identify parcels of land that would have included space for at least 20 affordable units, however you define that. But we needed an 80% vote, and we did not get an 80% vote, and we had, because many people didn't want the noise, they didn't want the construction, traffic, and so on. So the notion of association is very correct.
Erin, can you estimate how much of the area that has the larger acre zoning is actually within home associations?
That's a good question, because I think, because I'm not sure. I would say that there's, it's probably a smaller number than across the board, but there are some of our larger, well-established neighborhoods that have these similar covenants that I guess if I were to say these units were built in the 70s and 80s, there must have been a standard covenant at that time, and they all chose to use it. So I don't know what the acreage is, but it's probably not as high as you think, because we also have a community that also has very significantly rural areas as well, where there have been fewer of these larger subdivisions. I will say most of the newer ones have this requirement. So McKerney 1 and 2, Village Run, and Boston Post subdivision, which is off of Pleasant Street.
So part of the reason I asked that is because if the number one recommendation here from our last time was to reduce minimum lot size, the question and you've started with, we don't want to spin our wheels on doing a lot of work on something that's not going to have an impact. So would it have an impact given the magnitude of the home association issue?
I think it would. And I think it would have an impact in two ways. I think that we have a lot of properties that are non-conforming. So this is sort of an aside to this conversation, but it would bring a lot of those properties into conformance. But then we also have some properties that have significant sizes where that any sort of reduction, and I'm specifically speaking in the growth area, so that's really the medium density residential could have an impact.
Do we have any more data, planning, technical questions for Erin?
I would also, just to add to that, Kristina, I would say that if that was something that this group requested to move forward, we would, between Julie and I, and whether we needed additional support, we would do an analysis so that the decision-making boards have that information available and can weigh those pros and cons.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Erin. And she's here all night.
All night.
All right. All right, great. So we are going to go into the recommendation building part of this program tonight. So we are now on number 5 if you're following the agenda. We're going to work off this slide to start with. We can put some other things in bike racks or over here as additional clarifications on strategies. But I'd like to start with this number one, since we were just talking about, which is what kind of support is there in this room to recommend reducing the minimum lot size in the MDR?
Are we supposed to raise our hand?
You could. I could just like take the temperature. How many of you feel like this would be a good way to move forward for the town? Wow. Okay. Well, there you go. So it sounds to me like, Erin, you're going to be on the hook for that analysis to be able to figure this out. So I'm gonna actually ask you, Erin, just to clarify a little bit more about what you think the town council or advisory bodies, what kind of information they're going to need. And then I'm going to ask you guys to build on that so that you're able to provide some direction to staff about what you'll need in order to actually make that a policy or a change in ordinance.
We would start with a lot size analysis so that we understand which, what we're looking at in terms of the number of lots. In the MPR, there's about 1,300 lots. When we did the analysis for LD 2003, we found that there were about 250 conforming lots right now, so that's a pretty significant amount. I think we would look at what the average size is and map it so that you have an idea of the distribution. We'd also take out some of those subdivisions that we know about and do research on other subdivisions so that you understand what you're actually resulting with. And that's not, I would say that there's, it could probably be coupled with something else so that you're thinking about different types of housing types on similar sized lots. So I think relative to an analysis, there's some work that has been done previously that will probably be helpful to update and then provide you sort of a distribution along the way.
So, Erin, I'm going to put this in your hand for just a second. We're going to take a question, but can you fill in what I missed on defining the analysis by staff? Karen first. Thank you.
Erin, one of the things that we'll need a better understanding of is how LD 2003 and the modifications we made under that interact with a reduced lot size and whether we need to do additional tweaks or how that works.
Okay. Other things that you all want to make sure you understand as you have this decision before you? Seeing nothing. Okay. So in the spirit of trying to get to roles and responsibilities as we're doing this, since this is the number one thing you said last time and there's virtual unanimity in the room, what would be the process? So say the staff does the analysis. Who does this go to first or finally? We know it goes to town council. Does it go to a committee in between? Wendy?
To planning board, because we will want to do a recommendation to the town council.
Okay. Well, you can define it, right?
Yeah,
you
I
don't
would like that.
So Wendy's saying the planning board would like to see it. Okay. Karen and then Dave.
Could we have a process to deal with the urgency of the situation where something comes to the town council first and we refer it out with a schedule, such as, please give us your recommendation in 2 months or 3 months, something concrete so that we know it's coming back to us.
So you have like a schedule. Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you want to do it. I mean, this is up to you. There are some towns where the town council will give guidance to the planning board. There are some places where the planning board provides the recommendation to the town council. There are ways that you could do it where you're defining the process for the council, or the planning board could define its own process and have the town council approve it. I mean, this is democratic government. You can figure out how you want to do it. David.
So we've got all of the committees that are involved with this. They're here. We had 2 housing summits. We were in the midst of a comprehensive plan revision, which I trust is aligned with this. So what I would like to see is, when we have the comprehensive plan come before us, I would like to see the ideas that have bubbled up here already vetted and on a slate of reforms that we can just pass all at once. Let's get this done.
Are you done with that? You done with the
I don't,
analysis?
I don't want to see it go back for more, obviously we want to do diligence on this, but we don't need to go back for more studies. Since we're putting all this time into the Housing Summit and the comprehensive plan, let's exit that process with the recommendations to pass right then.
Okay, so my understanding is the comp plan is going to be done in June? So what I'm hearing from Dave is a desire to adopt policy and ordinance changes at the same time with
Let's identify
with the
5
comp
things or
plan.
10 things or whatever, and let's pass it.
Okay.
Well, it can, as long as they're consistent. I should probably talk.
Yeah.
As long as they're consistent with the comprehensive plan and the recommendations out of
Yeah.
these summits, I don't see why we wouldn't, because otherwise we're just making plans that we're not implementing or following.
So before I come to you, Jay, let me just do a check-in with staff over here and share my microphone with you. Grab it. You grab it, okay. So how, if you were to do this analysis, Erin, could you have a draft policy that you could present for adoption by June?
That might be a lift just due to the capacity of the department. But I think that it is possible. And not to be the Debbie Downer here, but I am the planner, and I believe in engagement. So I do agree that there has been significant engagement with the comprehensive plan, but I think there is probably a need in the community to at least have a couple of public information sessions.
Okay, so I'm going to take some more comments on this piece, and we're going to kind of try to come to a consensus on who prepares what, when, and how does it get to final approval when. So let's take some more comments on the process piece here.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I won't speak for the whole Affordable Housing Committee, but I feel like we do have a lot of things that we're interested in proposing. I think when it comes to the technical zoning changes, we simply ask planning staff to come up with those recommended low-hanging fruit or good recommendations. And I don't think that our Affordable Housing Committee has the technical expertise on the zoning changes to necessarily come up with changes or recommendations to those. We're looking to planning staff on that.
Yep.
I'm just saying, I don't think we need to get in the way of this specific piece. We can, whatever staff says, we probably are going to go for those. So
Okay.
I just want to say in terms of process, nobody was asking necessarily that it come to the Affordable Housing Committee on these specific pieces, but
Yeah.
I don't think we need to get in the way of that at all.
I'm hearing a great vote of confidence for staff being able to actually draft the zoning for you guys to consider.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but it begs the question of whether we need a zoning, not that I need another committee, but a zoning committee.
Oh boy. Okay.
As a counselor, I would second what Jay said about the planning department having the expertise and the trust. I also want to speak in support of what Karen said about a schedule. It doesn't necessarily need to be exactly what Erin said or the process, but
Yep.
what Karen said. But
urgency.
Things get bogged down, and
Yeah.
I've watched it with the
Yep.
IZ proposals that the Affordable Housing Committee came up with a mandatory one, and it went nowhere, and now it's come up with a voluntary one, and it's still been put aside. So I would like some sort of process that has a time schedule that works for Erin, first of all, and her department. So if June is too soon, then we move it out, because certainly you guys have tons of work, and we don't want to, I know we don't want to go too fast because we want it done right, and we know you guys will do that. But whatever it is, whenever it is, a process for getting it done, unless there's some huge issue that comes up. But we just need to move along on these things. Is what is my.
And
I keep saying the same thing, but that's what I
echoes
feel.
what I heard in the first meeting from many of you. Wendy, I think, is next. That this is why we spent a little time on that flow chart also that was up there before about how this moves through, because I did hear that things got stuck and then they died and then they, it took too long. So we want to try to iron that out as best we can tonight so that we can hit a schedule that we're agreed upon. Wendy.
All right. So Erin, let's maybe have a conversation about a committee versus drafting something and having planning board, because we're so into the ordinances and the zoning and what the issues have been. Is it easy enough for us to have that conversation and have public comment at planning level to make those recommendations to the town council versus having creating another committee and all of that stuff? I don't know how, but if that is in support, if that's supportive to you and your staff, then I understand that. But if it's easier to just have us weed through it and hear from public and help with that kind of process to keep it quicker. But
I think it.
Hold on, Erin.
It worked well with LD 2003. And it took a little bit of time, but I think overall we tackled that between the planning board and the town council process pretty efficiently and relatively quickly. There's still communities trying to figure it out.
Me too, but
So let me draw a scenario for you. So staff does an analysis. There's engagement that happens around reducing the lot sizes. You have a lot of people that come and say, please don't do this. So does the decision get made at the planning, say the engagement's happening at the planning board. If you have, say, a packed room of people that come out and say, don't change the lot sizes, then what happens?
So what we would...
Here. And this is a question also for Dave, for Wendy and for Dave.
Sure. So what we would do is we'd have do the mapping. We'd probably set up sort of a time frame of what we're reviewing, what those particular engagements would be with the community at our meetings. But we gather the questions in our meeting, and we literally go through all the questions and then determine, well, does this make sense for the community? Does this not make sense? What would be best? So it's just kind of going back and forth as we listen through things, but then coming to some resolve on the majority of us. And then, go ahead.
Well, we do it on a one-by-one basis.
And Meredith, can you speak into
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We do it
Miriam?
Mary Lynn.
Marilyn, sorry.
That's okay.
Mary Lynn. I don't see a name tag, so I'm
I'm trying to be under the radar. We do it on a one-by-one basis. And maybe if we looked at, I didn't realize that 80% of what we're doing is non-compliant. If we looked at kind of what's making up that 80%, if I got the number right, that would probably help us direct and get some ideas of where we can actually do it more overall rather than one by one.
I like the idea of using the process of LD 2003. I do think it was very successful in how we did it. So if town council agrees with that, then...
So just to be really frank here, I am trying to surface any discomfort with process and worries about things not moving fast enough, given this. So Dave, I'm going to give you an opportunity to weigh in on this.
Sure, thank you. So again, I'm thinking that maybe the minimum lot size in MDR is a difficult example to use this on, but let's say something like multifamily housing, which is really just a binary decision. Are we going to allow it or are we not going to allow it? I think the broad consensus in this room everybody's hand would go up, I think. I don't know. We haven't done that.
We'll test it in a minute.
We'll test that. But if that's the broad consensus, is the comprehensive plan going to say, it's a pretty simple thing. Is it going to state that we should move to more multifamily housing or not? I don't know. But if the consensus here is we should, and if the comprehensive plan says it should, then I think we should just bring it as a part of a reform that we pass along with a comprehensive plan. And I think there's other things like that might not required as much analysis and vetting as minimum lot size does in the MDR.
Okay.
Stacked house, vertical, some of the restraints we have on vertical apartment buildings and stuff.
So-
Not heights, but the actual construction style. Those are the sort of things I think could be addressed early without, I'm not trying to say we shouldn't shortcut the public process, but we've got this very involved public process in the comprehensive plan. Let's take advantage of that and make some progress.
Okay, thank you, Dave. So I want to make sure that we stay on this first one, on the minimum lot size, because and what I'm hearing from you is that maybe this one it needs a little bit more time and analysis, needs a little bit more engagement and process, and it may not be the thing that's going to accompany the comp plan with a zone change, right, in June. So let me just, and we can come back to this, and I know, Karen, you want to, what do you see as the process for the minimum lot size reduction?
Well, maybe it's more complicated than I think. Probably it is. But whatever it is now, let's say, it's 1 acre now. It's 1 acre in the MDR. So, really, the choices are status quo. We keep it at 1 acre, or we move it to something else. It's probably, 0.75, 0.5, 0.25, whatever it's going to be. Is the comp plan going to recommend that? Is it going to, okay. So let's get working on, if we know it's going to be in the comp plan, we know it's going to be a recommendation, let's work on that analysis now.
All right.
I guess, am I not getting to the
no,
point you're trying to get to?
You are. I'm seeing other people's hands go like this. So we're going to go Karen and then Hildy, okay?
If Hildy's the one putting her hand up, I'm going to give it to her,
Okay,
because what I
because
would
she's-
like is the comp plan folks to respond, because
There we go.
the draft that I'm seeing is think about, consider, have
There's
somebody
not
look
hard
into this.
recommendations.
That's what I was going to say. I think the specificity that you're looking for is not going to be included in the comp plan. And the public process that has been incredibly engaging has not asked at that specific level. There has been not a proposal put forth that says, what do you think about 0.75 acres in MDR? That hasn't been part of our discussion. So I think that's the process that we're talking about having that won't be a part of the comprehensive plan process or of the comprehensive plan final draft.
Okay. So given that, I'm going to put out probably a very ignorant straw man for you guys to react to, but we might get to a place. All right? So feel free to push back on me. So I would suggest that staff in some time frame commits to doing an analysis. And once you've done the analysis, staff would develop a zoning recommendation. Okay? So the recommendation is coming from staff. And Erin, let me just ask you a quick question in there. Would you lead the engagement, or would you have the engagement go through a committee?
Probably a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think there's a good public vetting process with the planning board. But I think, like I had said earlier, I think what we did for LG 2003 was successful.
Can you quickly say what that was for everybody?
So we started with a public information meeting, and then we had 4 sequential meetings. So over 2 months, 4 meetings with the planning board, which resulted in a recommendation to the town council. And then ultimately, we hit the summer, so a little bit of let's not adopt something big during the summer. And then by October, it was adopted and effective this January. So I think it was on the efficiency scale, I think pretty efficient.
Okay. So I'm going to take what you just said and morph it. So for the reduced minimum lot size, we'd have staff develop an analysis, do an information session, use the planning board for engagement sessions, number to be determined, and then have the planning board make a recommendation to the town council. Can I get like a thumbs up or down or medium on this? Okay, so if that's the process, wow, again, a lot of unanimity. Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
I guess this might be more for the planning board than for you. Or Erin. So what does that process look like at the planning board? Does it look like a presentation 1 month and some comment, maybe bringing it up the next meeting, more comment and a vote? Or does it look like, what I worry about is it looks like 6 months worth of comment at the planning board level? No, or 6 meetings worth, I guess I should say. I don't.
Well, we do base things on public comment, and then getting modifications, and then it comes back for feedback. In a normal process of a project, it's usually 2 meetings, then a vote, or even sometimes 1 meeting, but that's an easy, this is not that. But because it's something that we want to hear from the people, we don't want it to go 6 months typically, but it's just all based on public engagement. We don't want it to go that far, but.
Okay. Sometimes it does. And just a reminder about this one, though, which is that eventually it has to come to the town council because we're the ones who vote. And at the town council level, it will also have public engagement at least twice. So we don't necessarily need to have every bit of it at the planning board if we know it's going to come up again at the town council level.
Okay.
So just to speed things along.
Okay. So the basic outline, and we're probably not going to get into the level of detail of how many meetings at each council and exactly this, but the overall thing is staff does analysis, drafts a recommended ordinance. I'm looking at Erin if she's anything's making her uncomfortable. Staff holds a information meeting that's public that kind of presents this, and then there's going to be some public engagement through the planning board, hearing strongly from Megan and others, not 6 months of it, and then then there'll be a recommendation that's coming to the town council. Okay. So on this, and I'm going to look to you first, Erin, because I know you talked about some capacity constraints in your department. What do you think about the timing for these first 2 things?
Our effort right now is getting the comprehensive plan into tip-top shape and getting it in front of the town council. So while I think that there's some overlap towards the end of that schedule, once it gets released for public comment, there's a lot of work to make sure that that document is ready for submittal and ready for public comment.
So let me say, just understanding myself how constrained everybody is, how would this work for summer?
Probably, yep.
Okay.
At least.
And then do you want to set, as a group, do you want to set a target for when that recommendation gets to town council or when you're voting on it? Would it be October or December?
Before the holidays.
Before the holidays.
So nothing happens in the summer because people don't want to have us do anything in the summer, which I still find perplexing. But once we hit the holidays and budget season, it all shuts down. So all the substantive stuff happens in September, October, November.
So I'm going to say before holidays, but then, Wendy, does that give you enough time to do your engagement pieces right here, in the September, October period, and having a vote before, say, Thanksgiving? Where's the mic? Oh, sorry, Jay. I'm going to come back to you. I'm sorry. Let me just get Wendy's answer here.
Well, I think it's kind of a shared answer between Erin and myself, because she's actually doing a lot of the work for us besides the meetings that we have. So if we have summer, if you have comprehensive plan in June, is the plan? June, you have time in July, August to do this information. Then it comes to us September, October, and our goal will be end of October, November, beginning of November to go to town council. But that then conflicts with their public engagement, unless you're going to combine it with budgets and stuff and holidays.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to go to Jay because he's been waiting.
Yeah, I know we're still on that first agenda item.
You want to get to the
and
others.
it's 7:20. And I hope I'm misunderstanding what you're talking about here, because if you're talking about this whole process just for reducing minimum lot size and then coming back again and doing something else for allow more multifamily, what I heard Dave say was, I want a slate of recommendations, and we do this once.
Yep. So yes, and I can, I don't need this. Yes, I am planning to do that, to come back to that, but I think it's going to be easier once we've actually mapped this one out. I think this is probably one of the toughest things to figure out. So have a little patience, if not faith, and we'll get there. All right, so we've got a proposed process, which looks like the planning board is going to have to move with alacrity in September and October to get to a town council vote before the holidays. All right, can I get a thumbs up of agreement on this? Okay. Yeah, I've got almost, maybe there's some medium ones, but mostly you've got thumbs up here, so that's great. So we are going to go to the next one, and I think zoning is the biggest one here for us. Well, we may find out differently, but allowing more multifamily. So what we heard from Dave is that this is a simpler up or down, that this is something that could possibly be a policy that came to the town council at the same time that the comp plan was adopted. So let me hear comments on that. Does that mean yes, you agree? Okay. The question is that what I heard? What was the question? The question is, would it be possible for a policy that recommended more multifamily in, not in MDR, yes, in MDR, more multifamily in MDR, would it be possible for that policy to be adopted at the same time the comp plan is adopted in June? How many people say yes, that's possible? Okay, so to me, that process is a more expedited one than what we're talking about for the reducing minimum lot size. Erin, could I put you on the spot and ask you what that process might look like?
I think it's probably more straightforward, and it's identifying. Sorry, I'm just waiting for the crinkle.
I'm sorry about that. Oh, I'm getting attacked. All right, we're fine here.
Identifying, what if it's on the same footing as single family. Maybe it's a spectrum of things, putting duplexes on the same level as single family, and then thinking about how to allow, new structures that have 3 units or more, and making a decision on whether there's what that minimum lot area looks like, if any, and if there's additional lot area per unit. So I think that there's plenty of examples that we can build from and see what makes sense. But this is a little bit less of a fraught issue, I think.
So can you talk about what staff's role would be, and then how you would get a recommendation to accompany the comp plan?
Yep, so it's probably just developing a definition for the zoning.
That staff would do that?
Yep, we can do that. And then, adding it as a use, which is pretty simple, into, the zoning districts that make sense. And then, thinking about minimum lot size.
I'm sorry, so add as a use to the appropriate zoning districts? Is that what you're saying? Okay. And then would it go straight to town council?
Because it's a land use change, it would have to go to the planning board for a recommendation first.
Okay. So in order to make that happen with the comp plan, Wendy, when would that need to go to you?
So June, I keep saying June. June's busy. So it would have to come to us in either April or May. April.
Okay. All right, is there anything, and then I'm just going to put, it's going to be part of David's comp plan package.
It is. Then it won't pass.
I got to put it in the comp plan.
Something people can buy into.
Comp plan adoption. I'm just shortcutting this here, but I mean that it would be part of whatever policy changes are ready to be adopted as the comp plan is adopted in June. Karen?
Does one of the things that staff have to do with the level of site review for a multiplex?
It's already subject to site plan review.
So it's treated differently than a one-family house in that respect, and that's not expected to change?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
I would say that site plan review works pretty well. If there's anything, I would say exempt smaller structures from site plan review. Right now, single and 2-family structures are exempt. So site plan review has worked well. It would be required. It's already required for new multifamily buildings in the CBDC. So I would say it's a pretty standard process for Yarmouth.
ADUs?
ADUs is an administrative process with my department.
Okay, are we ready to move on from this? Had a little patience. Got there? So let's talk about the public perception pieces. Or actually, I'm sorry, ADUs did come up. We have encouraging ADUs over here. Does this need a separate zoning conversation? I'm seeing a wagging head. No?
I have a different question, sorry. Let that one be answered.
I mean, I think when the council and the planning board considered ADUs through LD 2003, you made some good changes. So I think as it relates to what my department's also doing with the Affordable Housing Committee around ADUs is we're developing a guide to demystify the process around ADUs and sort of help the permanent, folks that are like, oh, how do I even do this? Have clear, defined steps, tips and tricks, and help to understand what they need to do and what they need to accomplish. So I think when we're working on that, the combination of the revisions for LD 2003 and that guide is going to be a good boon to demystify that whole process.
Okay.
Just before we move on from zoning, a quick question. So is there something we should be doing around vertical, allowed construction techniques with vertical stack? So, because that would be another one I'd like to see fast-tracked if we could.
I think that goes into the definition of multifamily that we would look at with that.
Okay. So I'm just going to develop a definition. This would include, what did you call them? Stacked? Stacked.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody good before moving on from zoning?
Can we use Erin's tips and tricks, please? Just figure that somewhere. That's a great phrase. I love it.
Tips and tricks. Great. All right. So the next one is really around educating and helping provide information to the public about welcoming housing. You have a variety of things that we talked about before that you suggested last time, but we really didn't have much time to go into it. So I'm going to start with kind of a broad question here is, what kind of information do you think would really help make Yarmouth residents more comfortable with housing? We'll go to Megan and then Karen, and then Hildy, did I see your hand? No.
I'm not sure how to get it out to them, but the work that Julie's been doing and Erin's department have been doing with video and photographic and interview, my husband and I were interviewed, evidence of the various multifamily homes that already exist in Yarmouth that people don't realize are multifamily homes. They look like historic single-family homes in the village. I think Julie's work has been mostly in the village. I think it's great, and I think if we get it out there, it's already done or almost done. And I think that would help a lot of people. I think people think of more density as houses next to each other like this,
Yep.
And that's not what we mean necessarily by more density. And I think it's already there, and we don't even know it. We drive by it every day. So I think that would help people.
Yeah, so you're really talking about visuals, and you have something that's really in the works that I know Erin and Julie have told our team a little bit about. It's very exciting. Great.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay, great.
And thanks to Sean for his support there.
Nice shout out. What other kinds of information? Yeah, Jerry.
So one of the things that keeps coming to my mind is more housing, more kids going to school.
Mm-hmm.
We look at our taxes. Most of our real estate taxes go to paying for the school. So a model of the impact on taxes to the average homeowner here in Yarmouth, predicting somewhat what this would look like 5 years from now, I think would be important information to get out there.
Great. So Jerry, and you are echoing what I've heard in many other towns, which is people want to have an understanding of when you have a certain kind of development in a certain kind of location, what kind of impact does that have on school children, and what kind of cost to serve versus the revenues, the property tax revenues that you'll bring in, and having a real understanding of that. Okay, thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, I think that's important. And there was a little bit of work done on that a while ago. And it did show that the increase in students in the schools mostly came from existing homes being resold when families left town after, and that they filled up again with more kids, and that the new homes didn't produce as many new children for the schools as the existing homes already did. So, but we have to do more, but that's already been out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just also say Freeport has asked GPCOG to do the same thing, and we're building a model right now that I saw the draft of earlier this week. It needs to be prettied up, but it's not consumable. In fact, I was like, what does this say? But we're getting there, and we've already done it for Scarborough, because they were looking at some decisions around Scarborough Downs to kind of understand what the impacts are. So I think there's an opportunity for us to maybe work with you a little bit on that. Great. Other thoughts about what would help the public feel comfortable?
Yeah, I know, right? It actually brings something up that I haven't seen on any of these lists yet. I know we've been talking about Railroad Square, kind of bandying that around. It's a 55 and older development, and I just wonder, we're not even talking about that. Is that something we need to look more into? I mean, is one 55 and older development enough? Because right now, if you're an older person that lives in one of these huge historic homes and you sell that home, where are you going to move?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So senior housing is one of the things actually that you can kind of model as you're looking at growth.
So after our last housing event, I was trying to think of, okay, what are we missing that used to just be a normal thing? Like, okay, I bought a house and it was 1,500 square feet, and I now have 5 kids, and I don't fit in that house anymore. And typically it was, okay, I put my house on the market and I would buy a bigger home in the same town. It doesn't work that way anymore. So how can something, I don't know, can be created, and I'm going to throw this out there and you're all going to think I'm crazy, but maybe our friend Scott over there maybe there's just a list of, okay, I'm interested in selling my house, and I go on this list, and then you're interested in selling your house, and your house is a little bit bigger than mine, and then we switch. But we still have brokers involved. But I don't know, I mean, but we're missing that whole. We have people from other states coming here and paying millions of dollars for homes, and we can't do this. I know it's like way off the wall, crazy, but how can we find ways to have the things we used to have without like forcing it? You know, I don't know. But yeah, y'all looking at me like I'm crazy. So
I'm going to put it up here. Sometimes really out of the box ideas, they can be morphed into something that can work. So,
there are ways to do that, and they are legal.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different can of worms that I don't think we want to.
But what I think, so I am going to capture, we'll capture it in this, but I want to stay on what you identified as one of the key strategies, which is to try to change the way people think about housing. So let's hear some more ideas about that. Lee.
So we talked about this a little bit last time, and we're on the fringes of it today, that some of our, I'm going to use the word older adults, they don't want to leave Yarmouth, but was it you, Megan, who said, yeah, I mean, they leave. They leave as soon as their kids.
Yep.
So if we had smaller domiciles for people who don't need whatever size, then we're helping with the tax issue. And the other thing is, I think we need some of the wonderful, eloquent voices that we heard at least one of the meetings I was at, where wonderful Cape Shore man, I don't know if he's here, but he talked about how he needed workers, and they can't afford homes. So if we're talking about business people who cannot hire, those voices we need to hear as part of the public education.
I'm going to put eloquent here, but it can be business, other things. I mean, this is actually what you're talking about, Lee, is community organizing in some ways is to have folks that you know really care about housing from their own perspective show up. And, you know, one thing that happens a lot is that, I don't know how many of you are homeowners, but many homeowners, you know, you've got a lot of equity invested, and the people that need to have something that's more affordable or rent or, you know, want to move to Yarmouth, they're not going to show up at your meetings, right? So what you're going to get is you're going to get people that are already really vested here. So who are the people that can speak? And you're talking about a business owner who can't find workers, and in a way, he's the proxy for that worker, you know, that can't be here. So it's just something to think about, you know, as you're thinking about these changes, you're going to have people that have a lot of different opinions on this, and you want to make sure that you're hearing from their full community and the full constituency.
Sure. I just had 2 cents to throw in,
Yeah.
which is rather ironic. When a lot of the folks that want to move to Yarmouth want to move for their schools. So I was at a Royal River the other day having a, I guess, excited conversation around real estate, and a lady behind me, oh, do you do real estate? Yes, I do. What's going on? And she was like, well, it's funny that you come from Yarmouth, because I teach in Yarmouth, but I have to live in my mom's basement in North Yarmouth because I can't afford to live there. And I asked her right on the spot, because I'm on this community, would you ever say that out loud? Well, yeah, of course I would, because and I told her what I was part of, and she's like, oh, you're just going to pull me in. I was like, yeah, but you have a great message. I mean, people come to Yarmouth for the schools and the teachers, but yet if they hear the teachers can't even afford to live here, I think it's a good message for the public to hear.
Yeah.
And she threw her name in the hat.
I'd be curious, I don't know whether Scott or Nat know, how many of your employees can't afford to live in Yarmouth? That'd be an interesting, I'm not asking you to respond at the moment, but it's,
Come on, Nat.
you know, and
Tell
how
us.
many of the teachers, how many of the firefighters, how many of the police people?
Yeah, it's firefighters, it's police, it's teachers
Yeah.
like me. It's and the problem with a place like Railroad Square, which is 55 plus, is it's not affordable for anybody who's, you know, you have to sell your current house in Yarmouth for a whole lot to be able to. It's going to be very expensive 55 plus. It's not going to be inexpensive 55 plus. So that will most likely bring in many.
Yeah.
Of 55 plus people from out of town.
And Michelle, I just want to let you know that at the last.
The only reason I brought it up is because someone brought up the thing about taxes, you know, about coming here and you're paying taxes for kids to go to school or something like that, or what the plan was, like how many kids would be in the school. And I just thought, well, the answer there is to not build housing that kids go into, build housing that kids don't go into.
And then see what happens
Skipping over the
time.
affordability
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
But then again, if you're getting
But you
$1.5
need it
million
for all
for
of
your
these.
house, you can probably afford one of those.
And at the last meeting, you guys established, right, that senior housing is needed, but also workforce housing is needed, family housing is needed, kids are needed. You know, there's a variety of different types of people that make up a full community, right? And it's all needed, you know. So, okay, anything else on kind of the public education piece? Jay, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention and remind people, maybe again, of the early 2022 report that the Affordable Housing Committee gave to the town council and a presentation that we did. There were a number of anecdotes of town employees and a lot of information in there about people not being able to afford.
Yeah.
And we also had a series of listening sessions. So between reaching out to business owners, town employees, lots of people, having them come to listening sessions, come to the town council, and say their piece. You know, there's a lot of data out there about the public perception of what's going on.
Yeah.
I think that people need to understand the ordinances, because as much as we want to hear from the public, it really comes down to, are we following the ordinance? And, you know, I've come from a planning background, and I believe in public participation in the planning process, but I don't think that we need to respond to every question or every comment that the public makes. And I think that's dragging down the process quite a bit in Yarmouth.
Okay, that's an interesting observation about process. All right, Michelle?
So just, it's quick, I swear. And not contentious.
Take your time.
So getting back to the communication piece with the
Yep.
public, I think perception is huge. I mean, I think there needs to be a shift in perception because if I've heard anything on town council over the last few years, it's that we're building too much in Yarmouth. But then you look at the statistics, and we're actually really not adding that much housing. I think the peak year was maybe 22 units, and that's when, what is it, Magnolia Lane, whatever that one thing was. No, not McKierney. No, I don't. Is that what it's called, Village Run? Okay, I know it's Magnolia something over there. They're all trees. But that when that went in, that was I think like 22 units, and that might have seemed like a lot to people, but then again, I look at that and it's a beautiful neighborhood, and I think I can't believe we built these houses on such huge lots because that's So the other perception I think that needs to change is that, and maybe this is because I live on a small house on a small lot. Maybe your house in Yarmouth isn't going to look like the house you want it to look like. Maybe a starter home is okay. Maybe we need to reframe our thinking too and say, instead of having these large lots that someday people could build to the drip, it's not a drip edge, the setback, the setback of the property line. If we start with smaller lots in the first place, with smaller homes, then that gives people a place to start, and then or end up or go back to exactly. So I don't know.
Michelle,
I
that's
think
great.
perception is huge, and we just need to kind of tweak people's thinking some.
So we could go on about this probably all night. So what I'd like to do is just kind of quickly summarize some of the main themes that came out from here, and then talk about what kind of next steps you want to take. And then in our last 15 minutes, focus on funding, okay? So here we've got kind of videos about what good density can look like. We've got information about the tax impact of growth in housing. We've got having different voices come who can talk about people who don't have housing or need different kinds of housing. Maybe a little bit of research on your own employees in town and whether they can be here or whether they have to move someplace else. And then some explanation around your ordinances, maybe the facts around what's the true level of growth, and also maybe this can also be in visualizations, maybe like that it's okay to build smaller homes. Like you don't need everything to be $1 million fancy rich home on a big lot. Karen, one last comment.
Thing,
yes.
One last thing. Something that we did with the comp plan public engagement was show people what we could have that we don't have in town. So examples of things that are missing, whether it's the things that we showed them in the comp plan process, or other communities where they have built, for example, cottage courts, which are very small homes that create a small community where there isn't like a car parked in front of all the homes.
Yeah.
It's off to the side.
So some visuals.
It's really an inspiring kind of use of space that people haven't seen here.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. All right, how are you going to do this? What's the process that you want to undertake to implement this recommendation that you've come up with?
Does GPCOG do any consulting?
We do, and actually our communications director is here, Tom Bell, over here, and he actually is working on kind of some regional information that helps people understand what happens when lots of zoning prohibits housing from being built in our region, because it's a major workforce and economy issue, and it's also a transportation and climate issue because people have to move further and further away, and it causes a lot of open space consumption. So we're doing some information on that, which you don't have to pay for once it's done. But it is possible if there was something specific to Yarmouth, we could help you on it. Probably not all of it. Yeah.
Well, just in our digital age, we're able to put everything online, and so I would propose that it all shows up somewhere on our website. It gets plugged in our social media feeds. But we've been talking a lot at the comprehensive plan level that once it's complete and it's online, that there are links, workable links that you can move through the document and the public can get to referring documents, so the videos that Julie's been working on, that presentation, can be easily accessed electronically. So electronically, it's going to be the biggest way to get the word out.
Okay.
But I love our social engagement has been really positive too. So if we just did these companion events, as they're calling, and kept that going past the comprehensive plan process as much as possible, because I know that's a lot on staff, but maybe there's a separate committee that keeps that vibe alive. That would help to continue the conversations too.
Okay, that's great. So I'm going to capture that as build on the comp plan, comms, communication successes, continue to do electronic information provision. Thank you, Hildy. Other ideas?
If I could, I think that there's some organizations in town that could be helpful for it as well. I think sometimes, a town official saying like, and this comment has come up, earlier, is that when you have other folks representing the issue that are not us, it also goes a long way. So I think that there's organizations here that can help communicate this, the need, the issue, the concern, demystify, make sure that, kind of. But I think there's opportunity to work with other organizations in the town to bring this to fruition.
Okay, and maybe that could build on what Eric was saying before about the person that overheard you at the Royal River Grill. If there could be, some sort of list of people that care about this, that's caretaken by somebody. Maybe it's another organization, because it's not really a staff role.
Good segue.
Yes.
So one of the things that we had really tried to work on this past fall with the Chamber of Commerce is doing sort of a business expansion and retention program. Unfortunately, they're going through some administrative transitions, but this spring we really hope to dive deeper into the housing impacts from local businesses. And again, leveraging the chamber as sort of a third-party, non-governmental organization there, hoping to maybe glean some additional information on impacts and sort of real-life scenarios that folks are dealing with, and trying to recruit and retain employees. And Mike's a great example at Cape Shores. Got entry-level, very minimum wage workers coming in from Brunswick and Lewis and Auburn. It's just not sustainable. And so trying to get sort of real life testimonials from existing business owners who are looking for help. The other thing that I just wanted to mention as well is it's been sort of on our agenda for a while, and we're making some good progress on adding some communication capacity to our staff. It's kind of a all hands on deck type deal to get newsletters out and social content out and website updates and all this stuff. And so I think we can all sort of admit on the staff level, it just isn't good enough. And so we're putting some resources towards adding to that capacity, which will help work with Sean to develop some multimedia, some video content, some audio content, some new web content, photography collateral, other things that we can enhance our digital presence. So again, that information is accessible, digestible, and using some different sort of ways to sort of convey these are topics that aren't easy to digest, and translating that into a way that people can kind of absorb and react to. So again, the idea of pushing community engagement and finding different avenues to get folks involved is going to be important.
Great. So there's a lot more that we can dig into on here. What I'd love to know is there a group of you somewhere that could steward this idea into a more precise action plan? I'm looking at Jay, but he's not returning my look.
What plan? The plan for this?
I'm not clear.
So the idea here would be, so we've got the beginnings of some things that might need to be produced. We've got the beginnings of some ideas about how to do it, but this needs a home in order for it to move forward from like an idea here.
The whole,
this is just on the public perception piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
personally feel like we did that 2.5 years ago. And that's why I'm frustrated. That
Well, okay, so, yeah, so I understand that, but there's also like, there's an ongoing need for
Yes.
kind of education. There's collateral, there's social
Yeah.
media, there's video, there's finding great messengers. There's like a lot that could be done with something like partnerships with other organizations, right? This is not a small thing. So, is there an appropriate, and Hildy, I'm gonna give you the look next, and you see, like, is that something where you were talking about that there's been some communication success with the comp plan committee? Is this a place where this could be part of your implementation?
I was
That
just
this
thinking
could-
that actually, thank you.
Okay.
You were reading my mind.
Okay. Well, I was searching for somebody to meet my eyes when I asked her.
As we're still in draft phase, it could be included as a strategy and then put into the implementation committee and implementation plan. So,
So
yes,
Hildy, I'm just
absolutely.
going to write your name here, which might sound really crazy, but
Well,
I'm just
Hildy
gonna put
is not the implementation committee.
Yeah, and I'm just going to put here for a placeholder that if the comp plan incorporates this as a strategy, that then this would be part of the implementation. We only have a few more minutes, and I want to get to funding.
Okay.
Burning?
I just wanted to say that I think it was what you both put together, all of you, the various public sessions about the comp plan were very well attended, much more well attended than most of the things that we've put together over the years. So that model would be great to use again, I think.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, we're going to move to funding, knowing that hopefully this can live in some sort of an implementation of the comp plan. It probably have to live other places too. So funding and resources. Two different things here. I'd like to know what you guys want to focus on. There's like the town providing incentives to kind of developers, which would be town-owned land, money, things like that. Density bonuses. You know, there are different ways that you can help bring down the cost of development to bring up the density. And then there's the other piece that you identified, which is actually helping people try to get into the market. So which one do you want to go with? Do you want to go with like the town providing resources to catalyze development or helping people? I'm going to just ask for a quick vote on that so that we can move to that real quick. How many of you want to go town-owned resources? How many of you want to do people? Okay, we're going to do town-owned resources, knowing that there's more discussion to have at some point, all right? So, oh, Bill, sorry, that wasn't your thing. Okay. So, Karen?
I'm just holding for Bill.
Okay. So, in terms of town-owned resources to try to catalyze good development, you've got $400,000, you've got town-owned land. How do you want to think about using those potential resources to help with reducing development costs? Karen?
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that there was a community members proposal. Comes from the Yarmouth Housing Collaborative. They've been looking into town-owned land for a long time, and they've identified 4 properties they think are the best candidates for affordable housing projects, both rentals and home ownership. And they provided a proposed roadmap for how to get there. That includes, who the team is that works on it, and what are the things that they have to do in order to get the work done.
Okay. So there's a proposal. There's kind of an owner for that proposal. How many people are familiar with this proposal? Not many, about half of you. So there needs to be a little bit of education about that, I think. But overall, the idea is that town-owned land could be put out for proposals for development that could then go there, and that the cost of land would be at a low cost, lower than market cost. Okay? Am I summarizing okay for everybody? All right. So go ahead, Bill.
Excuse me. It sounds as if the assumption is the town would sell this land to a developer.
Could sell, give, or sell it for a lower than market value.
How about just leasing it?
Or leasing it. So that would all be in the specifics of the proposal. So the question is, let me just take, because we are short on time, I'm sorry about this, can I just take the temperature of the room of how many people think this is worth exploring? Okay, worth exploring. So let me ask the next question, which is, who does this proposal land with to get massaged?
Yeah, I think first step is that's recommended in the strategy is a feasibility study on the 4 properties.
Yep.
And that's just going to require town council approval on funding.
Okay.
So I think that it just comes to us
Okay.
at the beginning.
And is this a staff thing? Does staff bring this, or is this maybe this group that's come together, come and make a proposal? How would you like it to happen?
Well, I think what's been talked about is having that group come and give a proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to give a time frame?
March.
Okay, so March invitation to the group. Yeah?
Yes. It's already on the agenda.
Oh, already done. We can put a check mark up here. All right, so we have like 2 minutes left. Jay, I'm going to have you speak. We have not talked about the affordable housing money that you've already tucked away. And I would love to get a quick answer on where the decision for how that money gets spent, where does that go? Like who's going to kind of take that on? But Jay, I'm going to have you speak first, and then I'm going to ask you to all think about that and answer that piece.
Well, I can speak to that. I think
Okay,
that,
great.
I think the Affordable Housing Committee, I believe we've already put a memo together about funding resources and criteria that we would have for the use of
Okay.
our funding that we have. I think we need a much more comprehensive guidebook or manual, and Margaret just sent me a wonderful one from Brunswick that has a affordable housing support fund that could be a really good model. I think that they got some resources from Maine State Housing Authority to produce this kind of a guide for using town funding.
Yeah.
So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think there are really good models out there for
Okay.
using that funding.
Great.
So I
Sounds
would
like a lot of work
encourage
has already
that.
been done. So,
Yes.
So let me ask a question of you and Dave. Is this something where the Affordable Housing Committee could make a presentation to the town council?
Sure.
All right. And when would you like that to happen?
I don't know. We have to discuss it tomorrow.
Yeah, March, April.
Okay, so I'm going to put March, April. And now I am going to congratulate you because we actually got some responsibilities, timeframes, concrete action steps. Our next steps are Christian and I will write this up so that you can kind of use it as a memorial thing, run it by staff, and then you can all have a copy of it so that it can keep you on track. Does that sound good? All right, give yourselves a round of applause.
Can I just say
Thank
one
you.
more thing?
Yes.
Because you do have incentives for developers up there.
Yes.
And I have to say that the whole mandatory inclusionary zoning that did not go forward and the voluntary inclusionary zoning, which really is about incentives
Yep.
for affordable housing, it's simply an incentive ordinance for affordable housing. And we have a draft that went to the planning board, and to be perfectly honest, it got a very lukewarm reception, I feel like, a week or so ago. And
Okay.
I feel like we need to push that forward because that is an incentive program that really would not cost the town anything.
So let me ask, how many of you will give each other and me 5 more minutes to talk about this? Okay, so we're going to go to 8:05. Sure.
We're setting goals here, which I think is great, but I have no responsibility to you, or vice
No, you
versa.
don't.
You
None
know,
of you do.
I don't know how you're, but I would love to see you come back in June.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh.
To see if we are on target, because otherwise things
Oh.
can just kind of, we didn't.
You want me to be like the school mistress?
Yeah. You know, and if we didn't make the goal, why not? And if we did, what worked well so we can get to the next level? Because if we don't start measuring things, it's going to keep sliding like
Yeah.
it has been in the past.
I'm going to respond because the inclusionary zoning was brought to us this past meeting, and we don't have a next meeting because we didn't have anything to us. So we're going to the end of February, but we all went through it and made edits. We had 5 people. So some people wanted the edits to be brought back to reread it and then vote on it. So
it hasn't been voted on yet?
It has not been voted on yet, but I think it was a clear understanding. And we don't keep pushing it off. And this is not an agenda for us. It's to make it right, and it was asked to come back by the planning board.
Okay, so my understanding is it's still alive.
Yeah.
It's being commented on.
Right.
And it's going to come back in February for a vote.
Right.
And then you would recommend
to the town council.
To the town council.
But there's been a huge gap between presentation to this presentation.
So that's where the frustration is coming from, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just want to leave it at that. It's coming to the planning board on the 28th.
On February 28th?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Michelle, did you want to add to that? No. Okay, so I'm going to put up here, I mean, it sounds like it's already in process, but I'm going to put IZ for inclusionary zoning, and it's going to the planning board for a vote to recommend to the council, or to recommend something to the council.
Correct.
Okay, on February 28th.
That's correct.
All right.
It's an incentive program. It's not inclusionary zoning.
I'm sorry. What would I call it, Erin?
I would just call it incentive program.
Incentive program.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Jay, is there anything else that you want to add about that?
Sure.
Okay.
I guess it's just a question of, would the council like to see the one that we presented, or one that the planning board wants to change?
So it sounds like the original recommendation is getting significantly changed at the planning board level. Is that correct?
Or maybe not significantly changed. I don't exactly know what the changes are.
I mean, it's not a personal agenda. We're coming up, making modifications that we're submitting to the town council.
Wendy, let's get you on the mic here. So she's saying that this is part of the process.
Correct. So it's part of the process, and I mean, we're asked by the town council to make a recommendation. We're going through the process. We made edits. It might not be everything that everybody's happy with, but it's what we're coming up with to give to the town council. I don't think there should be 2 separate.
Right, so there's always the opportunity also, right? You're advisory directly. The Affordable Housing Committee is advisory to the town council. The planning board is advisory to the town council. At the town council level, there's always the opportunity for the Affordable Housing Committee to comment on the proposal that comes from the planning board. Yes?
And,
okay.
And the council can change it also before we vote.
That's
we
right.
can change it to, if we see, both things, we can put it back to whatever it should be.
Yeah.
And hopefully the planning board would send it with reasons behind their changes. And if those reasons were, and if the planning board, another thing the planning board could do, it could have done it with the mandatory one, is you can vote no and send it on to us. We don't have to.
Right.
We
Just
don't have to
because
agree
you
with
vote
that
no.
when it gets to us. But instead of, because I think that one got weighed down with constant changes from both sides, and we don't need to do that.
So it's
I'll also note that we set aside the inclusionary zoning because of going back to what I mentioned earlier. There's external forces that we didn't want inclusionary zoning to weigh down further. So we pivoted. Doesn't mean we won't come back to it. Speaking on behalf of the committee, but that's the reason for the long gap and the switch to the incentive program.
Okay, great. In the resources that all of you have in the agenda, there is, I think, the Affordable Housing Committee's report, Jeff Levine's report. There are other things too that you can continue to think about these things because it's complicated what you're trying to do. But I also have to say, like Yarmouth, the fact that we had so many unanimous things here, that there's been such great participation over 2 workshops at night, is a real indicator of your commitment to trying to make things better for the people that already live here and for people who might live here in the future. So you've done a really great job. And we'll get this to you as soon as possible. And the town council sounds like it's going to have a lot of things to decide on in the coming 6 to 10 months. So great. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.